Hey, good morning. Welcome to Redwood Church. We are so glad that you've joined us on this, the third Sunday in Easter. As we said last week, the first Sunday in Easter was Easter Sunday. Last week was the second week. Now we're into the third week. And much like we had the 40 days of Lent, we have 50 days of Easter leading up to the day of Pentecost and the birth of the church. And so we're working our way through that. And last week we talked a little bit about post-resurrection experience of Jesus, and now what we're shifting to for this week, I think I've done this before, but I can't remember. Yesterday, the Saturday, April 22nd, is set aside as Earth Day. In fact, the first Earth Day was in 1970, and so I thought it would be appropriate as we gather to just talk a little bit about the stewardship of God's creation. And so before I do that, though, before I start, I want y'all to do me a favor. I want you to, so yesterday was Earth Day. Tomorrow is mine and Shannon's anniversary. We will celebrate 24 years on April 24th. And so, there's people who say that's a minor miracle, but no, we have had 24 great years, and grateful for those 24 years and look forward to at least 24 more to go. And so, y'all join me in telling Shannon thank you for putting up with me all these years. I'm certainly grateful for that. But so yesterday's Earth Day, tomorrow's our anniversary. But Earth Day, as we think about Christians, now I want to be very clear. This is not political commentary. I'm not going to get into there's the issues around the environment and climate are extremely complex. They're extremely polarizing. And so what I want to do is to think about and talk about our responsibility as Christians. It has nothing to do with policy, climate, all of those things. And maybe at some point it's our responsibility as Christians to advocate on behalf of those things. But I think it has to come from a place of stewardship, that we are called to be stewards of God's creation. And so what does that mean? I think that means starting with the story of creation. And so we're going to work through Genesis 1. So it's basically Genesis 1 through Genesis 2, 4 is the story of creation. There's actually, again, not to get into a whole lot, there's actually two stories of creation. There's two versions in Genesis. This is the one as we go through the days of how God created the heavens and the earth. And so I'm going to kind of work through that. I got a couple quotes that I want to read for us, and then I'm going to close with a poem that was written. And so I'm going to start in Genesis 1, Genesis 1:1. And so Shannon's not going to lead the scripture up there the whole time this morning, because I'm going to kind of read a section and then talk about it, and read the next section. So you might want to grab your Bible. I do think I've shown you this before. It's called the Green Bible. This is a Bible, you've heard of the old red letter edition where all the words of Jesus are in red. Well, the Green Bible, the editors of the Green Bible went through and took any language that had to do with the earth and creation and God's creation, and they put those words in green. And then there's additional resources in here. It's actually made from all sustainable materials. The cover is a sustainable material. The ink is all environmentally friendly inks, naturally derived inks, and so it's really a cool Bible. I have a couple copies of it, and I really, really do enjoy the resources that are in this Bible. So we're going to kind of begin in Genesis 1, verse 1, and it's the very beginning of the Bible. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, and a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. I am so photosensitive. Shannon and I are having some work done around the house, and we've had to shift our bedroom to a guest room that's on a different side of the house, and it doesn't have, we have blackout curtains in our bedroom, and this room does not have that. And in fact, we've left it's on an upper level, and so we're not as concerned about privacy, and so we've just left the curtains that are in there up. And so as we get further along in the year, the days are getting longer, the sun is rising earlier, and Shannon and I have both commented on how nice it is to kind of wake up naturally with the light coming through the windows in the morning, and how that kind of gently wakes you up versus being in pitch black and your alarm going off and you're slapping at your phone or whatever. But I love this concept of light. And any of you who've been around me for any given time, you know that another one of my favorite verses in the beginning, in the prologue to John's Gospel, in the beginning was the Word was God, and the Word was with God. Nothing came into being that didn't come, and the Word was the light of the world. And so John's prologue ties back to the creation of the earth. And so this idea of lightness and darkness and the balance between the two and the phases that those are, and how that impacts our body, how God's creation is so perfectly designed to work with us, his creation, and how we interact with the earth. And so we pick up, and God said, "Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." So God made the dome and separated the waters that were under the dome from the waters that were above the dome. And it was so. And God called the dome the sky. And there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. I love looking up at the sky. I love seeing clouds. I love a perfectly clear day. There's times when it's just so beautiful to look up and see the sky. And so on today, as we look out and look around, we just look at the beauty of God's creation. And one of the first things we do is just look up and wonder and awe of what God created and the beautiful blue colors. You know, that the reason that our sky is blue is, and I remember this from my time in physics and in optics at Georgia Tech, and is that the way that the light comes through the Earth's atmosphere, it filters out all of the colors except for blue. And then in the evenings, when we get those different colors, it's because the atmosphere is filtering those colors at different rates. And so in the evening, we'll get those pretty oranges and reds, and it's all the way that the sun's light is coming in. I read an article just this week that we think about the sun being on fire, but the sun is really not on fire. Oxygen is not a part of what's happening, and it's the sun's constantly creating energy by the way that these gases change form. And so we think of it as kind of being a big ball of fire, but that's really not what it is. It's this reaction of these gases that emits that light and the heat that we get back in the earth. It's just pretty amazing. So we pick up in verse 9. And God said, "Let the waters under the sky be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear." And so it was. God called the dry land earth, and the waters were gathered together. He called the seas. And God saw that it was good. And then God said, "Let the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees of every kind on earth that will bear fruit with the seed in it." And it was so. And the earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed of every kind, and trees of every kind bearing fruit with seed in it. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. This time of year, we're very blessed and fortunate. We bought a home a few years ago that has a beautiful yard. We have a relatively large piece of property, and the previous homeowners did a beautiful job landscaping our home. And there's something almost every season, and so almost everything now is fully leafed out. All the trees and all of the plants that come back to life in the spring. Now, that really heavy freeze that we had in Atlanta earlier in the winter took a toll. We had several plants that it either killed or they almost completely defoliated. Some of those are now getting back some leaves. Some of them may have to be replanted. But as a whole, all these plants are coming back to life. There's plants that have been dormant during the winter, and they come back to life. And as we're in this season of Easter, and as we think about resurrection, I'm reminded that on an annual basis, how so much in our landscape the leaves fall away during the winter and then they come back. There's this resurgence, and it's not necessarily resurrection, but there's this resurgence of these plants, and it's just a beauty to behold. And I just was talking to Shannon earlier this week about how almost every morning, one of my routines is to go out and just walk around our property and to see what has bloomed or what has grown new leaves and has new growth. As I looked out this week, I think we're beginning to get the first signs of possible blooms on our hydrangea, and so just there's this constant beauty in the landscape. So pick up in verse 14. And God said, "Let there be lights in the dome of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them be a sign for the seasons and for the days and years, and let them be lights in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. God set them in the dome of the sky to give light upon the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning, a fourth day. In addition to looking at the sky during the day, and I've said this before, you've heard me say it before, that I don't know that there's anything more powerful than standing under a perfectly clear night sky in a place with no light pollution. One of the most vivid memories I have of this was when I did a wedding down on Sea Island a number of years ago. The family were kind enough to have me stay with one of their family members in one of the cottages on Sea Island. And Sea Island's very dimly lit. There's streetlights just enough to get light in the street. And so if you go out to the beach at night, there's almost no artificial light. And so this particular night, the moonlight was just perfect. And it looked like the sky would explode in light from all of the stars. And you just look up and think about the majesty and the magnificence, the scope and the scale of it. And it's almost impossible to fully understand, aside from the fact that it makes me remember and believe just how great God is. And so there was one of the quotes that I have in here. It's from Ralph Waldo Emerson. "All that I have ever seen teaches me to trust the Creator for all that I have not seen. All that I have ever seen teaches me to trust the Creator for all that I have not seen." So I think that's so fitting and beautiful to think about, that if all that we can see is so amazing and so awesome, and at times just so difficult to get our arms around, how much more can we trust the one who created all of that? And then God said, "Let waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the dome of the sky." So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves of every kind, with which the waters swarm, and every winged bird of every kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. We have a bird feeder right outside the window, and I was negligent for at least a month earlier this spring in not filling up the bird feeder. And I'm amazed that during that time, I still see them come around and they'll drop in. But my goodness, we have been rewarded once I refilled the feeder. We've had the most beautiful finches and cardinals and robins and woodpeckers, and they've all and the dove. The dove, bless their hearts, they are so fat. And we have this bird feeder that has a spring-loaded platform on it to prevent squirrels from being able to sit at the feeder, and so it only holds a certain amount of weight. The doves push the limits of that when they get on there, but and it is fun. I probably get too much fun watching the squirrels try to get to the feeder, and there's a dome covering it, and they'll get to there and slide off, and they'll fall to the ground, and they'll climb back up the tree and try again, over and over and over again. But it's so amazing to watch the birds at the feeder, and they're so beautiful, and they're so majestic. And there's a huge heron. We have a creek down below. We have a heron that is in the creek. And just earlier this week, I heard some splashing in the water, and it's a mallard, a mallard couple. There's a male and female mallard, and I think they're the same mallards that come back every year, and they must nest somewhere along the creek. And so such beauty in that part of creation. And then picking up on verse 24, and God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle and creeping things, and wild animals of the earth of every kind. And it was so. God made the animals of the earth of every kind, and the cattle of every kind, and of everything that creeps upon the ground of every kind. And God saw that it was good. And then God said, let us make human beings in our own image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over all the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. So God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. And God said, see, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food, and to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life. I've given every green plant for its food. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was all very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished in all their multitude. And on the seventh day God finished the work that he had done. And he rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done. And God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created. And so God created the heavens. Now it says subdue, and I looked up that word subdue, and that we have dominion over. We had looked up dominion and subdue, and certainly we do. God created the heavens and earth, and he gave human beings to have dominion over that. But there are many other places in the Bible where it's clear that when we talk about dominion, that comes with great responsibility. To have control over something like that God's creation, it's not ours. If you've been in churches with me, you know that I say, when I've had prayers for the offering, I'm saying, everything we have and all that we are and all that we have is a gift from you. Let us now return just a portion of that. And so everything that God created, everything that we have is part of God's creation. And we are called upon to be good stewards of that. There's a couple other quotes that I want to share for you. First, from the Book of Common Prayer. We give you thanks, most gracious God, for the beauty of the earth and sky and sea, for the richness of mountains, plains, and rivers, for the songs of birds and the loveliness of flowers. We praise you for these good gifts and pray that we may safeguard them for our posterity. Grant that we may continue to grow in our grateful enjoyment of your abundant creation, to honor and glory of your name, now and forever. And then John Wesley, the founder of that we call ourselves Redwood, we call ourselves an independent church in the Wesleyan tradition. And part of the reason that this is so important for me to talk about Earth Day is that it's right there in our name. As a community of faith, we're called Redwood Church. And we've talked about the fact that the reason we're named Redwood is because although the largest trees in the world, they don't really have a taproot, and all those roots are interconnected and fused, and they intertwine, interconnect, and fuse, and allow all of the trees to flourish and to grow and to protect one another. And it's such a beautiful metaphor of God's creation. And for that very reason alone, along with all of the other reasons, I feel so convicted that we as a church are a community of faith, a Christian community of faith that models what it means to take care of God's creation. And John Wesley speaks to that. I believe in my heart that faith in Jesus Christ can and will lead us beyond an exclusive concern for the well-being of other human beings to the broader concern for the well-being of the birds in our backyards, the fish in our rivers, and every living creature on the face of the earth. And so Wesley recognizes that, yes, we have to take care of each other, but part of taking care of each other is recognizing that we have to care for all of the creation around us. I love being outdoors. I spend as much time as I possibly can outdoors. It's why I love playing golf. As frustrating as that game is, there's nothing more beautiful than a gorgeous golf course and all the different settings. I've played ocean golf, I've played city golf, I've played mountain golf, and I've played desert golf, and I've played coastal golf in Ireland. I mean, I've had the privilege of playing a number of different places, and every one of them is so spectacular because there's always parts of God's creation there. And so, as a church, as God's church, we are called upon to be stewards of God's creation. So on this Earth Day weekend, just a few things to think about. How can we, and I'm just going to give a couple, there's so many ways that we can do this. I have a friend, our friends, the Memorshines, who are doing the Great American Loop, who were the inspiration for what's the best that can happen. One of Cinda's challenges that Cinda gives is she asks every person she knows to pick up 2 pieces of trash a day. It seems so simple, but just throughout the course of the day, picking up 2 pieces of trash. And so I'm a germaphobe, so that means I have to have my gloves on or my little grabbers, but I try every day to pick up a couple pieces of trash. So I encourage you this week, try to pick up 2 pieces of trash. So that's one thing we can do. What's another thing we can do? When we are buying something, let's think about how we're going to use that, and that are we going to be good stewards of it? So we buy things that are sustainable. We live in a disposable world, and all of that disposable stuff is ruining our earth. We have the creek, as I mentioned, in our backyard. I've bought waders so I can walk through the creek, and every couple of months I walk from one end to the other, and I pull debris out of the creek. Plastic bags, plastic cups, aluminum cans, glass bottles, all make their way into the creek, and that creek goes into Peachtree Creek, that goes into the Chattahoochee River, that ultimately goes into the ocean. And so I feel that my responsibility, at least on this little section of creek, is that I can keep it clean. And so pick up 2 pieces of trash, reduce the amount of stuff that you have. We have way too much stuff, and if you have a choice between something that's sustainable and something that's disposable, buy something that's sustainable and use it till it wears out, and then try to recycle it or reuse it. I think those are 2 simple admonitions for us. We can talk about more in another time. But that is just a little quick. The last thing I want to do is read this poem from a piece of this poem from St. Francis of Assisi that talks about the beauty of God's creation. And so just bear with me real quick. This will kind of be our prayer. So God, hear this, our prayer. Most high, O powerful, good Lord, yours are the praises, the glory, and the honor, and all blessing. To you alone, Most High, do they belong, and no human is worthy to mention your name. Praise be to you, my Lord, with all your creatures, especially Sir Brother's Son, who is the day and through whom you give us light. And he is beautiful and radiant and with great splendor, and bears a likeness of you, O Most High. Praised be you, my Lord, through Sister Moon and the stars. In heaven you form them clear and precious and beautiful. Praise be to you, my Lord, through Brother Wind, and through the air and cloudy and serene and every kind of weather, through whom you give sustenance to your creatures. Praise be to you, my Lord, through Sister Water, who is very useful and humble and precious and chaste. Praise be to you, my Lord, through Brother Fire, through whom you light the night, and he is beautiful and playful and robust and strong. Praise be to you, my Lord, through our sister Mother Earth, who sustains us and governs us, who produces various fruit with colored flowers and herbs. And all God's people said amen. So glad that you've joined us this morning. I want to remind you that we are so excited that a week from today, next Sunday, April the 30th at 3 p.m., we're going to have the Redwood Roundtable, and there should be an invitation going out to everyone who is on our email list. We'll also have that invitation on social media, but this is a great time to remind you, if you have not given us your email, if you will go to redwoodchurchatl.org, and you have a place where you can give us your email, and we can make sure you're on the email list, and you'll get that invitation directly. But we hope that everyone who's in town next week will join us at 3 p.m. at Hills Avenue so that we can gather for a time of celebrating what we've done, celebrating we are, and looking forward to the future of Redwood Church. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Have a great day. Have a great day and have a great week. Take care.